Happy Friday. Welcome to Within the Frame. Korean directors, movies, and actors are going global as they venture into prestigious world stages, including Hollywood. For this topic, we are joined by Jason Bechervaise, film critic and professor at Kyungdong University. Jason, thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for having me, as always.
Always a pleasure. Also joining us is film critic Piers Conran. Good to see you, Piers.
Good to see you too. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. At first, Jason, Director Yeon Sang-ho, best known for his blockbuster thriller Train to Busan. He is slated to helm the TriStar's Pictures 35th Street, partnering with Leonardo DiCaprio. Give us more detail about this movie and also about the significance of Director Yeon's Hollywood debut.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up with Yeon Sang-ho. There's a lot of news around his new works this week. So yeah, he's collaborating with Leonardo DiCaprio, his production company, and it's really exciting. I mean, there's not much in the way of details regarding this new project, but I think it does underscore how Korean directors are now, working with, Hollywood A-list, directors and actors on various projects. He's also working on a project called Revelations, which is going to be with Alfonso Cuarón as attached as an executive producer. So that's really exciting. That'll be a film, that's a Netflix film starring Yeon Sang-ho. So yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing a lot more films, more projects with Korean film directors, writing, producing, directing, and we've got, Hollywood big names also working or collaborating with them. And I think that's just, another stage in, I guess, the internationalization of Korean cinema. It's happened in various stages over the years, but I think we're seeing it, kind of almost accelerated over recent years with the explosion in Korean content.
Can't wait. Looking forward to it. All right, Piers. Director Yeon has earned wide acclaim here in Korea for his unique and distinctive storylines, as shown in his Netflix series like Hellbound, The Bequeathed, and Parasyte the Grey. How does Hollywood view Yeon and his work?
Well, I think that compared to some other very commercial, popular Korean filmmakers, Yeon Sang-ho has sort of a more globally accessible sensibility. He mixes very kind of pulpy thrills, kind of genre-driven works, and they often include pretty universal social messages. So there's a bit less melodrama in his work, and I think that makes his work kind of more accessible, particularly to in the Western mindset. So people do kind of gravitate towards that. I recall when Train to Busan premiered at Cannes, I was lucky to be in Cannes that year, and I was working for a Hollywood production company then. And then they contacted me saying that they had friends from the big U.S. agencies who had seen Train to Busan and wanted to get in touch with Yeon Sang-ho and sign him. And there was this whole spree, and I met all these agents for coffee, and they all wanted to meet Yeon Sang-ho, or rather meet his reps, and try and sign him. In the end, it was a United Talent Agency, UTA, that signed him, and so now they're kind of they're the people who are responsible, I suppose, for bringing in these big kind of interesting Hollywood projects. And we'll see, of course, how many of these really get made, because a lot of things get announced, a lot of very exciting things get announced, and it's not always so easy for them to kind of get over the finish line.
Yeah, I agree that he has very unique style, and that's what is making him famous. All right, Jason. Korean sci-fi black comedy Save the Green Planet and director Park Chan-wook's Old Boy are set for English language Hollywood remakes. What updates do we have on their development so far?
Yeah, this is really exciting. I mean, when you talk about Korean remakes of Korean films in Hollywood, I think, there are a lot of examples, not least Old Boy, that clearly haven't worked, have been critical flops. But yeah, this Save the Green Planet remake, it sounds really intriguing. It's directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, famous for films such as Poor Things, featuring Academy Award winner Emma Stone, who's actually going to star in this new film that is going to be shot in the UK and the US over the summer, I believe. Yeah, I mean, I think his style is kind of eccentric style. I think is well matched for a Save the Green Planet remake. I mean, the film, of course, directed by Jang Jun-won, it was released in 2003, just a really kind of iconic Korean film. It didn't work in cinemas then, but it has built this, audience since. It's becoming like kind of like a cult classic. And I think that potentially could be, a very, very interesting film. And then we've got this Old Boy series, which is a Lionsgate drama. So we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. I mean, we do have Snowpiercer that was also made as a series, which wasn't too bad. I mean, it wasn't, I quite like the second season, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, Spike Lee's Old Boy remake was a disaster. So let's hope there's not a repeat of that. But, kind of going back to, an earlier point I made about kind of the internationalization of Korean cinema, and we're seeing, more and more kind of talent, global talent working with, Korean directors or, IP. And I think it's, it's an interesting direction this is all heading.
Also, Jason, again, what significance do Save the Planet and Old Boy Hollywood remakes mean to the Korean cinema?
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly further exposure for the industry as a whole. I mean, people will check out the original film, and I really do hope so. I think, as I said, I think we're seeing we're seeing more and more content out there that's being searched out by Hollywood producers. I mean, remakes are announced all the time. There's like 20 years of announcements of remakes of Korean films, Bittersweet Life, and there's a whole number of them that have never actually materialized. But it does seem that Save the Green Planet is happening. That will be released, and that's very exciting, and that's going to generate even further attention. I mean, the studio behind it as well. I mean, it's CJ Entertainment, or CJ E&M, and they are focusing more on international projects these days, less so on the Korean projects, and that's where the industry is heading. It's become internationalized. It's global. And so
expanding the market.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, the Korean market's been saturated for some time, so they've been looking at kind of global projects. I mean, talking about Snowpiercer back in 2013, they saw the potential for projects overseas, clearly in the United States, but also other parts of Asia. And I think that's just another part of it. And I think there's potential here for this remake to do very, very well, but we'll have to wait and see.
And Piers, meanwhile, cave movies continue to gain traction at International Film Festival, with Harbin starring Harbin securing an invitation from the Toronto International Film Festival. What factors do you believe contributed to the film's selection?
Well, the film is in the gala section, which is reserved for bigger titles, splashy titles that have people that are worth putting on the red carpet. And so I do think the film's pedigree is to some degree responsible for its selection. You have Hyun-bin, as you've mentioned, being the star of the film. He's a huge global star, especially following the success of Crash Landing on You. And so I imagine the Toronto would be very happy to have him grace the red carpet. Director Woo Min-ho also has some pedigree. He made the wonderful thriller Inside Men, which was very well seen around the world, a big hit here in Korea. And he also made the historical drama The Man Standing Next, which a few years ago was picked as the official Korean entry for the Best International Film Award at the Oscars, at the Academy Awards. But also there's a fact that it didn't go to the Cannes Film Festival. And since the film has been ready for quite some time, I'm pretty confident they submitted and it wasn't taken, which meant it was available for a fall festival selection, as they say. That said, a selection at TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival, is generally a pretty good indicator of quality. I mean, the Korean films that screen there tends to be pretty good ones. And so, and as it happens, I've been hearing some pretty positive things within the industry about Harbin. So that's encouraging, and I'm certainly looking forward to the film. But when you hear things within the industry like that, always best to take those with a little grain of salt.
And staying with you, Piers, tell us more about the Toronto Film Fest gala presentations where Harbin will premiere. And do you think the film's participation in the festival will facilitate greater penetration of Korean cinema into the North American markets?
Well, I think that certainly the gala section at Toronto, you typically have a couple of Korean films screened there. This is not a rare occurrence at all, which is great. And it's more about kind of keeping the pressure on. As long as there are interesting Korean films to screen there, it always shows that, you know, Korea is a consistent presence in the gala section at Toronto. That's very good. But as a promotional platform, I'm not sure how useful TIFF is for Korean films. It's not. It is useful, but it's nothing like something like Cannes, because Toronto is really geared towards Hollywood. It's really a promotional platform for North American films, particularly films that are launching into hoping to launch into an awards race, you know, ultimately culminating in the Academy Awards early the following year. So Cannes, which is far more international and is not connected to the Academy Awards the same way, is a much better platform for Korean films. I mean, if you look at last year, there were a few Korean films there. The gala selections last year were recent one, Smugglers, which was a big hit in Korea, but didn't really wasn't a big deal outside of Korea, unfortunately. And then you have Hojino's a Normal Family, which was a good film, which still hasn't been released anywhere. It's been to a couple of festivals since then.
All right, Jason. Son Seok-gu's short thriller Night Fishing has been invited to the International Short Film competition at the Fantasia International Film Festival. And we hear that Night Fishing is garnering global attention for aspects that diverge from norms, traditional cinema norms.
Yeah, no, this is interesting. I mean, Son Seok-gu is obviously a big, you know, actor in Korea, but clearly he's quite interested in various different projects and working not just as an actor, but working, you know, behind the camera as well. And here he's collaborating with Byung-gong, and he's an award-winning filmmaker. He made the film Safe that won an award at the Cannes Film Festival. And so, yeah, I haven't seen this film. I'm very intrigued. I mean, it's a project that's been supported, I believe, by Hyundai, you know, this car manufacturer. So I think there are various like cameras, you know, around the car, inside the car. I mean, the car is essentially one of the central characters in the film. And so, yeah, it's been released here. And I think, you know, with I mean, you got one of the exhibitors, CGV, which are, you know, very keen on trying to promote their, you know, premium formats. And this seems like a film that can really kind of exploit that. And so, yeah, I mean, Son Seok-gu is clearly trying to promote this film, you know, through social media platforms and really get the word out there. And I'm very intrigued to see it. And clearly it's already made an impression, both here and in Korea and overseas.
Mm-hmm. And up here's not only movies, but individual Korean actors are also receiving offers from Hollywood. You know, Lee Jung-jae made history as the first Korean actor to play a significant role in the Star Wars series. While renowned actress Kim Tae-hee and Squid Game star Park Hae-soo, they are also venturing into Hollywood. So what is behind their active entry into the Tinseltown, and in your view, what are some remaining challenges?
I mean, I suppose we have to kind of put this down to the increased visibility of Korean content on the global stage, you know, following the success of Parasyte at the Cannes Film Festival and the Academy Awards. And of course, Squid Game is the most successful, still the most successful Netflix content. But there have been, this is also not a new thing. There have been a lot of Korean actors that have been entering into Hollywood for years. If I'm not mistaken, there was Park Jung-hoon, you know, years ago. Park Hoon-jung years ago was in a Jonathan Demme films about 20 years ago, The Truth About Charlie. But more significant names include, of course, Bae Doona, who was in a lot of films for the Wachowskis, including Cloud Atlas, Sense8, Jupiter Ascending. More recently, she was in the Zack Snyder double bill of the Rebel Moon sci-fi films on Netflix. And of course, Lee Byung-hun being in films like G.I. Joe, Magnificent Seven. There was the Terminator Genesis film. And I think he's also in an upcoming Netflix film called, I believe in a thing called Love. I mean, you mentioned Star Wars. Obviously, it's very big that Lee Jung-jae is in Star Wars, and I know he worked really, really hard to improve his English for it. But we've also had some Korean actors already in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, very, very popular in Korea, whereas Star Wars not so popular in Korea. We had Ma Dong-seok in The Eternals, Park Seo-joon in the Marvels. Unfortunately, those were not among the most well-received Marvel films, but I'm sure sure we'll see, hopefully, both of them in future Hollywood projects. We've got Jung Ho-yeon from Squid Games, all these Squid Game people in stuff, and she is in rather the Alfonso Cuarón series Disclaimer for Apple TV Plus, which should be coming out soon. Blackpink, huge K-pop, internationally renowned K-pop outfit. Two of their members have been in HBO series. Jennie was in The Idol, which premiered at Cannes last year, I think, and then Lisa is in the upcoming third season of The White Lotus. There's a lot of pride, I think, in seeing kind of Korean performers, Korean industry people, not just being recognized with awards, but actually being invited to participate in Hollywood projects. And so that's all exciting. I also kind of wonder what it means for the local industry. You know, it's great to see all these people being recognized internationally, but if they stay, you know, off in Hollywood, and how are they going to contribute to the Korean film industry, which is actually really struggling at the moment. So I hope they kind of keep doing both things. I love how some of our favorite directors like Park Chan-wook and Bong Joon-ho, they often, you know, they're really recognized in the West, and they do projects in Hollywood. Park Chan-wook just had The Sympathizer for HBO, and Bong Joon-ho will be returning soon with Mickey 17 for Warner Brothers. But they also, it's always kind of one for them, one for us. So they like to kind of keep doing Korean projects as well. And I hope it'll be the same thing for these actors who are being steadily gaining more recognition in Hollywood.
All right. And Jason, before I let you go, the same question. In your view, what's behind Korean actors active entering to the Hollywood, and are there any challenges?
Yeah, no, I mean, Piers made a number of interesting points there. And yeah, we've seen a number of Korean actors. You know, we saw Lee Byung-hun, Bae Doona, as Piers said. You know, they've taken on quite significant roles. I think, you know, even for someone like Lee Byung-hun, I mean, a leading role in a Hollywood film is something that's, you know, quite challenging for him. But to his credit, he's come back to Korea and worked on Korean projects. And he seems to be focusing more on Korean projects nowadays, as opposed to international films. We'll have to see what happens, you know, going forward for him. But yeah, I guess for the, you know, kind of new generation of younger actors who are clearly enticed by Hollywood, and understandably so. And I was thinking also in terms of K-pop stars, you know, Piers mentioned Blackpink, but you've got BTS, you know, who, you know, when they come out their military service and they finish, or if they continue
all of them finish their military
if they continue to, you know, sing, great, but you know, what happens if they feature in a Hollywood film? I mean, could be huge. And what kind of roles will they play? Is this going to be a supporting role, or is this going to be a leading role? So I think, you know, that potentially is something to look forward to or look out for going forward. And, you know, I mean, with Lee Jung-jae in this new Star Wars series, I mean, I've been very impressed with the reaction to that. I was a little bit concerned that, you know, it might not get the reaction that perhaps, you know, associated with, you know, something like Squid Game, but it's got off to a great start and he's come out very well. And so I think that's good for him, obviously, but also for the Korean performers in general as well.
Okay, thank you, Jason, and thank you, Piers. I really enjoyed our conversation this evening.
Thanks again for having me.
And that brings us to the end of this show. Thank you for watching, and be sure to tune in next week to join our conversation. Bye for now.